Hello, welcome to Hints for Health, a series of podcasts covering areas and issues of concern and interest to global workers and those interested in having optimum health. Join us as we explore topics that affect most of us today and find ways to address potential challenges to your health. So let's join our hosts, Brian and Stephanie Kidman.
Today in Hints for Health, we would like to talk to you about the most common kind of cancer and how you can avoid it. I was surprised to recently find out that skin cancer had surpassed breast cancer as the most common cancer in women. It accounts for nearly half of all cancers in the United States. As you probably know, the definition of cancer is any type of malignant growth or tumor caused by abnormal and uncontrolled cell division. It may spread through the lymphatic system or bloodstream to other parts of the body.
In 2022, it was estimated that 1 in 5 Americans will develop skin cancer in their lifetime. About 9,500 people in the U.S. are diagnosed with skin cancer every day. Research estimates that non-melanoma skin cancer, which would include basal cell cancers and squamous cell cancers, affects more than 3 million Americans a year. Basal cell and squamous cell cancers, the two most common forms of skin cancer, are highly treatable if detected early and treated properly.
Melanoma is the most serious type of skin cancer. I studied nursing at Oral Roberts University about 40 years ago, so of course I haven't retained everything I learned, but I always read brochures while waiting in the doctor's office. And I remembered that moles with an indistinct edge that appear to be changing in size are a sign of skin cancer. So when I was visiting my dermatologist, I showed her the area of concern. She said it didn't look suspicious to her, but she would send off a biopsy just in case. I went on my way, which happened to be a 4-month trip to Costa Rica, when I received a phone call in the Denver airport during my layover. When the doctor calls, you know you need to answer, even if it's a crowded airport. She stated that the biopsy came back positive for melanoma and I needed to see a doctor as soon as I got to Costa Rica to have it excised. At that point, I didn't know a lot about the different skin cancer risks, but since then, I learned that melanoma is the most aggressive type of skin cancer.
Yes, it is aggressive, but the 5-year survival rate for people with melanoma has recently gone up to almost 100% if it's detected and treated before it spreads to the lymph nodes.
How about if it has spread to nearby lymph nodes?
Then it's about a 75% 5-year survival rate.
And what about if it has spread to distant lymph nodes or other organs?
Then the 5-year survival rate's about 35%. It is sobering that 20 Americans die from melanoma every day. 2022 at least.
Melanoma is a cancer that begins in the melanocytes, the cells that produce the skin coloring or pigment known as melanin. Melanin helps protect the deeper layers of the skin from the harmful effects of the sun. Although melanoma accounts for only a small percentage of skin cancer, it is far more dangerous than other skin cancers and causes most skin cancer deaths. It is estimated that melanoma will affect 1 in 27 men and 1 in 40 women in their lifetime.
And although melanoma is the most dangerous type of skin cancer, it only accounts for 1% of skin cancers. The most common types of skin cancer, of course, are basal cell and squamous cell cancers. These are classified as non-melanoma skin cancers. Most non-melanoma cancers develop on sun-exposed areas of the body, which of course would be the face, the ears, the neck, lips, back of the hands. And then depending on the type, they can be faster or slower growing, but they rarely spread to other parts of the body. And the good news is that basal cell and squamous cell cancers are highly likely to be cured if, again, you find them and treat them early.
I knew I had to be careful and watch for skin cancer because though I never used a tanning bed, I did spend a lot of time in the sun without sunscreen in my younger years. And I had multiple moderately severe sunburns. Since my skin is fair and I have freckles and blue eyes, my chance of skin cancer is greater than my daughter and my sister who tan nicely. My blue-eyed blonde sister tanned a lot in her teenage years, and she had both squamous cell and basal cell carcinoma, so she visits her dermatologist twice a year and protects herself from the sun. We both have to watch our freckles and moles so we can detect any changes. Even though our tanning and sunburning were earlier in our lives, the skin cancer tends to show up with advancing age. Dr. Kidman, have you ever heard of any other reasons people get skin cancer besides tanning beds and too much UV?
Well, there's a small proportion of melanomas that we think could be unrelated to sun and maybe more from certain viruses, chemical exposures, environmental pollutants, but that's uncommon.
And could you review with us the signs and symptoms of skin cancer?
Yeah, the National Cancer Institute tried to make it simpler to remember the signs of when a mole is becoming a melanoma, and they've given us an acronym A, B, C, D, E. So A stands for asymmetry, meaning that the mole is not round or oval shaped, but rather irregular as far as its symmetry. It's asymmetrical, in other words. B stands for border, where the border edges are not sharply and nicely defined, but they're irregular or ragged. C is for color. Typically, a normal mole color is about the same throughout the mole, but when it begins to change and you have some areas that are darker and some areas that are lighter, that would be a concern. D stands for diameter. Typically, if the diameter is bigger than a pencil eraser, it needs to be checked out. And then E stands for evolving, meaning that something about that lesion is changing over time. So signs and symptoms of basal cell and squamous cell cancer can include any change in your skin, especially in the size or color of a growth or a spot. Doesn't even have to have any color to it. Also, basal cell and squamous cell tend to be scaly. Sometimes they are oozy, sometimes they bleed. They can change in sensation. They can feel like a little bump or a nodule, or they can just be flat. They can be itchy, they can be tender, painful. Different types of changes like that would make a concern.
Can skin cancer be prevented?
Best ways to lower the risk of skin cancer are to avoid, of course, long exposure to intense sunlight, and then to practice sun safety. You can still, of course, exercise and enjoy the outdoors, but using sun safety at the same time.
Yes, I love the outdoors. So I try to be outside before 10 a.m. or after 4 p.m. when the UV rays are not as strong. I can find the UV index on my cell phone, on my weather app. It even tells me the hours to use sun protection.
Certainly look for shade, especially in the middle of the day when the sun's rays are strongest. And then practice the shadow rule and teach it to your kids. If your shadow is shorter than you, then the sun's rays are at their strongest and should be avoided if possible.
And there's a good way to remember to protect yourself from the sun.
What's that?
Slip, slop, slap, and rap.
Oh, I think we could make a rap song out of that.
Let's not say we did.
Okay, unless, of course, we get a demand from our listeners to create the rap. But anyway, what's slip, slop, slap, and rap?
Slip is slip on a shirt. Cover up with protective clothing to guard as much skin as possible when you're out in the sun. Choose comfortable clothes made of tightly woven fabrics that you cannot see through when you hold it up to a light. Slop on the sunscreen. Use sunscreen and lip balm with a sun protection factor of 15 or higher. Apply a generous amount of sunscreen, about a palmful, and reapply every 2 hours after swimming, toweling dry, or sweating. Slap on a hat. Cover your head with a wide-brimmed hat, shading your face, ears, and neck. If you choose a baseball cap, remember to protect your ears and neck with sunscreen. And wrap on sunglasses. Wear sunglasses with 99% to 100% UV absorption to protect your eyes and the surrounding skin.
Follow these practices to protect your skin even on cloudy or overcast days. UV rays can actually travel through clouds. Avoid other sources of UV light as well. Tanning beds and sun lamps are dangerous. They can also damage your skin just like the sun can.
Remember, slip, slop, slap, and wrap. Slip, slop, slap, and wrap.
I like it.
Thanks for listening to Hints for Health today. Join us again in the future for this series of podcasts that will help you in your goal of optimum health. This series is created and produced by Compassion Link, and Assemblies of God World Missions International Ministry. I'm your host, Neil Ruda. For more information, visit www.compassionlink.org/hints for health and follow us on social media. God bless you.